that thought that it was supposed to be easy came from thinking that it really was just about managing stuff instead of creating a home and an atmosphere for people. And people are work. And it actually is about the people and not the stuff.
You're listening to the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast, just the thing we all said we needed when we first became parents. Remember? Where's the handbook for this? I'm your host, Katie Kimball from Kids Cook Real Food, and each week I bring together experts in the fields of health, parenting, nutrition, and more to help you, intentional parents who really want to raise healthy, independent adults, to get the information you need. Thank you for joining me today. My guest today actually starts with that feeling of where's the handbook for this? But for her, it wasn't parenting as much as it was homemaking. She thought it would be a cinch and totally easy, and guess what? Life was not quite as easy as an adult as she thought it would be as a starry-eyed teenager. Mystie Winkler is a second-generation homeschooler living in Idaho. She's got 2 launched homeschool graduates and 3 still being educated at home. But this podcast, this interview is great for anyone who lives in a house and who has children, pretty much, especially women. She speaks mostly to moms. Mystie is the author of several books, including Simplified Organization, Learn to Love What Must Be Done. She also has a website and a podcast where she helps moms beat overwhelm and perfectionism through simple baby steps so they can love being homemakers. We dig into what Mystie's root cause symptom was of not feeling like she was homemaking very well at the beginning of her marriage and for quite a few years. She is an expert at helping people not just look organized, but actually feel organized, because it turns out it's all about how we feel and how our household feels to the people in it. Let's jump right into the interview. Well, Mystie, thanks so much. For those who aren't watching with video, I was just complimenting you on your very organized looking calendar in the background, and I have a very unorganized looking calendar. So I'm going to learn a lot today. I think all moms out there, all dads, who are we talking to today?
So I generally speak to moms who feel overwhelmed and maybe paralyzed by perfectionism. On the calendar thing, the great thing about this calendar here is that these are Post-it notes so that you move them, because life has to flex when you have kids and there's a lot of stuff going on. Your planning and your organization can't be this kind of rigid control situation, but that's what we as moms tend to think of. We think of homemaking as like decorating in sourdough and organizing as making things happen our way. I kind of take a step back and help us all just keep our priorities in line with what we really want, like to take a step back and think through our priorities and our purpose, and make sure that first our attitude, our demeanor, the atmosphere that we're creating just by our very presence, our own way we're talking to our kids, the way that we're handling life is a big part of what's teaching them. No matter what kind of schooling you're choosing for your family, just who mom is and how she handles different situations is a huge part of how we're bringing our children up and teaching them.
And it's always been said the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And that is not old-fashioned. That's very true. But it means that we have to be good trees. And I think you got this fish to bite, Mystie, and you can reel me in because you pretty much describe 95% of women who have children who are overwhelmed, a lot of us suffer from that disease called perfectionism and comparisonitis. They go hand in hand. And in this social media driven world, it can be really tricky not to look around your house and go, I'm the only mess. I'm the only one like in my mess, and everyone else has it figured out. And I'm just behind. So speak to all of us maybe about your story. When and why did you start writing and teaching about getting organized?
I was homeschooled myself as the oldest of 7. So of course, as an oldest daughter,
type A,
I was pretty sure I had it all figured out. I changed diapers. I helped with dinner. I helped with chores. So when I got married at 19, I was still very overconfident. I'm pretty sure like this was going to be piece of cake. I was going to lay out the best systems And then I'd lay out my systems, then we'd have children, and I was going to be the most on top of it. Like, it was what I was going to do. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to handle everything, but I was pretty sure it was going to be easy.
Uh-oh. I feel a twist coming.
It was not easy.
No kidding. What in the world? You live in the same world we do? Okay. So what would you say, like, if you can put yourself back in that 19-year-old shoes, which for some of us is 22, for some it's 30 when we get married, but what threw you the most?
Well, it actually took me a really long time to figure out what was at the root of my issues with dealing with homemaking.
So it was just super overwhelming and you were like, I can't even diagnose myself.
Yeah, well, I went through like, okay, it's just, I haven't found the right system yet. I'm just going to go on a systems hunt. I'll find the right thing that will just make everything work. I didn't land on that, within a few years. So obviously that wasn't going to work at all. Throw everything out the window. And I stopped even trying for a while. And it was like, well, if it only matters if I care about it and I don't care about it, like, what's the bare minimum I can do to get by? So we got into some pretty deep chaos.
At what point did kids enter your household?
We were married for 2 years, and then we had our first, and then about every 2 years after that. So like every new baby added in is another, like, throwing everything for a loop and suddenly things don't work. Or every move, different things. And so I read all the books, read business books, and tried to apply that to homemaking. And some of that really did help. But what I finally realized, just through conversations, mostly with older moms and just comments people would make that I think were, just God dropping insight, like, this is actually what you're missing. Through other people. I actually disrespected homemaking and housework. And I didn't realize that I did because I wanted to be a homemaker. I wanted to stay at home with my kids. But that thought that it was supposed to be easy came from thinking that it really was just about managing stuff instead of creating a home and an atmosphere for people. And people are work. And it actually is about the people and not the stuff. A couple years ago, I had some person leave a blog comment on one of my posts on having kids help with chores. And this was an anti-chore person who was saying, no, kids, it's child abuse for kids to have chores. So this blog comment, he said, you don't need to train your kids for years in something that anyone could learn to do in 5 minutes.
I feel like I've had the same guy on Instagram say that to me. Laundry, I learned to do my laundry in 10 minutes. Why are you? And yeah, absolutely attacking for child labor, blah, blah, blah. And this obviously was a turning point for you. What happened inside you when this guy attacked?
Well, that wasn't actually a turning point. I had already come to this, but to me, that comment just summed up my own attitude that I had when I was younger. Just seeing that comment, almost a decade later, I was like, oh, that is actually just a pithy statement of my initial problem back when I was younger. I'm just going to master this, and then it's going to take no effort at all. It's not going to be work because I will have figured it out. It is something that's not worth my time to work at.
Yeah, I can see why you waved the white flag and said, oh, well, clearly I don't even need this, because it's like a self-defense mechanism. If you thought the work you were doing was on the bottom rung of the ladder,
exactly,
and you weren't figuring it out well, that meant that not only were you, failing, you were super failing, right? So you had to remove that construct. So how did you redefine this? Obviously, you talked about reframing, looking at the people. What do you say to moms out there who are maybe struggling with that same feel, that what they do doesn't matter, that it's all about the stuff, and why the heck can't we figure this out?
I think it comes back to understanding and really getting rooted in the idea of what the home is really for. And all the Instagram stuff, the magazine, the HGTV stuff tells us that our home is our personal showpiece. Set it up just so that everyone sees your good taste and your organization thing. And it's really just about creating your little dollhouse. And so like, this is how I like things. And my home shows how I like things to be. And our home is about the people that we are raising and cultivating and hostessing. Homes are for building up people. And there are many different ways that homes can build up people. But the food, the cleaning, all of it is in service of this project of building up people, whichever people happen to be in your home today. Sometimes it's having people over. And there's, of course, the people who live in your house and then the people who leave your house. I have 2 grown sons that are gone now. And, now they're having homes. So in a way, my home has multiplied itself, right? It's like propagating, like a little plant.
Well, I feel like as moms, sometimes our homemaking gets really intertwined with our parenting. Do you feel like when we feel like our homes aren't enough, does that also, all of this that you just said, sort of apply to, gosh, our parenting isn't enough?
Oh yeah, it's so easy to go into critical mode. And once you're in perfectionism mode, noticing the things that aren't the way you want them to be, that's just going to spiral. And it's super hard to get out of that negativity spiral. When I was at the turning point and realizing like, I really need to change not my systems, but my attitude about my home, about my work, and try to dig into why this does matter. That's what's important is I need to know deep down that this does matter. Even cleaning the toilets. Why does cleaning the toilets matter? It's because I'm bestowing dignity on the people who are in my home by giving them a clean bathroom. And so just kind of as I worked through cleaning or baking or whatever it was I was doing is like, why does this really matter at the core? And where it's not about me and my identity or my style or my taste or micromanaging other people so that they turn out the way I want them to turn out, but really just about building people up. And so at one point, I've always been about the to-do lists, but I replaced anything else I wanted on my to-do list with smile. I put it on my planner. I put little sticky notes. I worked on making it a habit to smile at my children, like into their eyes, because I realized that I did want to be a homemaker. I was into it. I was trying to work at making it better, but I was also noticing all the things that were wrong, all the things that still needed to be done that were left undone. And so what my kids saw was frowny face mom, like squinty eyed looking around. My facial expression was communicating that I did not like my job and I didn't really want to be there. And they were interrupting me. And that was more important that they knew I wanted to be there with them, that I was listening and that I actually did like my life. But my mood and my facial expressions and just my mode of working was not communicating that.
Wow. I wonder, Mystie, how many moms are feeling hit pretty deep right now, because especially like I'm such a science geek. So I know that our kids have mirror neurons, and what we feel, what shows on our face and comes out in our voice, and they feel it. Even if our words, the content of our words is correct.
Right.
They feel our feelings and their bodies actually imitate those. I know that I'm often looking around and seeing what is not done. Right. And we absolutely make those faces. Would you recommend to other moms to start with that? Is that step 1 to changing the attitude, is just work on the smile and the face?
It is. I have a Homemaking 101 little mini course in my community that we try to get everyone to start with first. And there are 3 things, and smiling is one of the 3 things. And it's usually the one after people finish, I always ask, like, so which was the most, the step that really helped you the most? And like 80% of people will say it was smiling. And I think it's so huge because not only then are we communicating love and care for our children, but then we also feel it more too. And then when we feel it more and we have that connection with our kids and with our life, we feel more motivated and ready to deal with our life. I think that perfectionism piece and the overwhelm, the lie in it is that we can't be happy and we won't feel satisfied or feeling that lack of critical examination until we have it all dealt with. Like after I declutter, after I get the system in place, after. And it's like, actually you start with giving the love, giving the attention where it actually matters, which is to the people. And that overflows to the stuff. And then the stuff and the setting begins to become more consistent with the actual relationship connection that's there.
That's lovely. I mean, it's very science-backed too, that we change the way we feel by choosing to have an attitude that changes the way we feel, rather than expecting that something external can actually fulfill us or, fix the way we're feeling. That's beautiful. I do think when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to grow up. I couldn't wait to be an adult. And I look at my kids and I don't know, I guess my husband and I are emanating this like being adulthood is no fun, because they're like, oh, I don't want to grow up. It's all about paying bills and being so responsible. And I think that's a very interesting thing. Like, we need to market adulthood better. We need to market our own jobs, that this is a delight and not a burden. But how do you do that when you're cleaning the toilet, Mystie?
Well, you teach the kids to clean the toilet.
Okay. I'm all on board with that. We're all about life skills and, teaching kids to cook and teaching kids to clean those toilets. But I mean, what do you say to the people who say, well, okay, you're just pushing off your jobs on someone else. You don't actually like it.
Yeah, I think a part of the relationship piece and the attitude piece and, doing life together with your kids and bringing them along is a beautiful way to parent, but it also helps us make that connection between, this housework and the people, they go together. It's so easy to live in a compartmentalized life where it's like, okay, like chores are over here and then the parenting over here and, my social life or whatever. And these don't connect at all. And to recognize, like, even in your person, in yourself as the homemaker, these things all connect. Seeing our family as a unit. And our home is the stage that we're living life on. So the stage has to have set changes and, return to neutral and all that. But the point is never this, the stage is something amazing. It's that the stage is the place where the action of life is happening. And that life is a life that we're living together. So we're a team, we're a household, we're learning and growing together. I don't have to have everything figured out myself to then pass it on to my kids. What I'm passing on is, here, come with me as we're figuring things out. And there's maturing that even though I'm the mom, there's maturing I need to do. And you're going to come along with me on that journey. And maybe you'll be a little bit ahead, learn some of these lessons before me or along with me. And you'll have lessons too. And we're all just in this action of life together.
Well, that's a writer downer for sure. I don't have to have everything figured out in order to pass it on to my kids. And I find that a lot as a kids cooking teacher. Parents will sort of almost surreptitiously, almost shyly ask, what if I don't know how to cook? Can I still use your classes to teach the kids? And I tell them just what you said, is it's wonderful and beautiful to learn together. And it's amazing for your kids to see that you are still learning, right? We can pass on a lifelong love of learning, even if we don't know everything. That's how we keep learning, right? We don't know everything. I think it's so important for our kids to know that. And of course, on my podcast, we always got to talk about kids and the kitchen. So how do you incorporate your kids into the work of the kitchen?
So I've done different things over the years for sure. Right now, my kids are 21 to 11 and 2 have moved out. When they were all little, one of the first things I would do, when it's usually when you're making dinner, it's when everything is falling to pieces and kids are kind of getting hairy. And so you like wear the baby. I was so happy baby wearing was invented, it felt like, with my third. And then I'd have my 2 little boys and I'd set them up on the counter while I was doing chopping vegetables or cooking or anything. And I told them watching is helping. They definitely wanted to help. They were interested in food happening. That natural interest was there. And so at first it was just watching is helping. And then sometimes they could stir something. They always wanted the knives, but that ended up being way more true than I thought at first, because they were really watching how I was doing things and picking things up very intuitively then, because they had seen so many pieces of meals being made just by hanging out, that then when they got to be like 8 to 10 or something, I would bring them in and we'd have a dinner helper day. So they each had a day to be a dinner helper. And they kind of knew where we were. It wasn't starting from scratch because they had spent time just watching me. And so I could give them a job and like supervise, but not micromanage. A big part of it in our family was really just being okay with it being extra messy. And the real goal in giving them kitchen skills or cleaning skills or math skills, like anything we're trying to teach our children so that they have this ability into adulthood, means we have to just let them do it. Even if the end result the first time or the second time isn't what we could have done or the way we would have done it, they need to experiment themselves to learn. And so it's way more important that they get those skills and then the kitchen is messy and then they can practice, helping with that.
The fine art of cleaning up.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And I think parents have a lot of different thresholds of acceptance for how young a kid can be. I mean, I start my kids at 18 months to 2 years, actually getting their hands in and touching stuff. A lot of people start at 4 and 5. And so, you had a lot of little people around. And so for you thought, okay, like watching is helping. And I think the beautiful thing is that all the kids end up helping. They feel that team sense of we're all working together and we have family responsibilities no matter when you start. The only wrong way to do it is not to start, right? Is just to serve your kids always and do everything for them so that they don't ever lose that sense of entitlement, right? We got to give them that sense of family contribution. I'm talking about your book a little bit. And I read some of the Goodreads reviews, and one of your Goodreads reviews says this main content of this book is excellent, paradigm shifting even. It has challenged the way I think about myself as a homemaker and the work God has given me to do. I was convicted and started implementing changes even within the introduction. This book has been a true help to me, I believe, for the rest of my life. Why do you think your book hits people so differently than other books about organizing? Because if we know anything, a person, a woman especially, who buys a book on organizing, it's not her first one.
For sure.
Right? We have lots of them because like you said, you had systematitis. It goes right along with perfectionism and comparisonitis. Systematitis, I just need the right system that someone else will teach me and imbue myself with.
Yes. And then everything will be easy and beautiful for the rest of my life.
Exactly. So what makes your book so different?
Organization is in the title, but I even had this issue when I first contacted my book designer and I said, it's going to be called Simplified Organization. And she said, okay. And she sent back a list of questions where her assumption was that it was going to be photography heavy.
Oh, to show people the systems.
That is an organization book, right? An organization book is pretty pictures with everything that looks just so. And so we know that we want, when we want organization though, we want our lives to be properly ordered. So it's not just that the aesthetic is all white containers with chalkboard labels. It's that we can find things when we need it. So we're not panic hunting around last minute. We want the peace and calm of knowing what our responsibilities actually are. There are always a million things you could be doing in the home. So how do you decide what to do next? It's really about becoming more of a CEO of the household, a manager, and it's more internal work than external work. And so my book really starts with and always keeps that thread of the internal work that we need to do to be a homemaker. And it keeps that purpose of our home in mind, and the aesthetic piece of it or the outcome piece of it, how things look, is secondary instead of primary.
So no pretty pictures of our brains thinking. That doesn't really work. One of the helpful tips in your book, which I think is a lovely blend of kind of the heart and the hands, the philosophical and the practical, is to create zone routines. Tell us a little bit about zone routines.
Like I said, I've read all the books pretty much when I was trying to get things together. So it's like my simplified take on something like Fly Lady, or I'm pretty sure that Fly Lady was zones, and that's where I got that first. So if you break your house up into zones, your kitchen, your living, every house has a different layout and different needs. The important thing with your zone cleaning or your routines isn't that you do the exact same routine that someone else does. Your zones aren't going to be the same as anyone else, and the time that your zones take are not necessarily going to be the same as anyone else, because we all live in our houses differently, different numbers of people in the house for different amounts of time per day. All of these factors mean that someone else's cleaning checklist isn't going to work for you. You have to be paying attention to your own life and adjusting as you go. So you can think of your home in zones and give each one some attention during the week. But there are really several different ways you can arrange that. And so instead of giving you do one zone per day or a zone a week and then transition, it's like, these are the categories that are helpful for thinking things through for yourself. And here's how to think it your own situation through for yourself and come up with something that helps your home function. And then just be happy that your zone has a job and it's fulfilling its function, even if it's not, looking like a magazine cover.
I'm sort of an academic of sorts. And so I love that instead of saying, hey, try to take this system and plunk it down on your house, and if it doesn't fit, oh, well.
Yeah, change your house.
It's someone else's cleaning checklist is never going to fit you, which now you've totally ruined a ton of organizing bloggers' lead magnets, because everybody wants the checklist. You see someone on Instagram cleaning and people are like, oh, they beg for it. Can you show me your cleaning checklist? What do you do each day? I just want to print. We want that simple hit print, check it off. And now my house will look like this influencer's. And so thank you for the honesty in bringing that down to real world, that someone else's cleaning checklist will not fit your house. And basically it sounds like you're going to teach us how to think. That way, when you move, your own checklist doesn't completely fall apart, because you know how to adapt and shift it, because you created it with your own thoughtfulness and your own philosophy. And by the way, our own personalities.
Yes.
Many other people's checklists do not jive with my personality. I feel like friction, and I want to color on it or spit on it or throw it out. I'm like, don't tell me what to do, because I'm a little bit of a rebel. I'm trouble. I'm such a problem. But if I can think about something that would fit my rebelliousness, then it's going to work better. And I know, Mystie, just before we end, I do have a practical side as well. So I know, although tips and routines, checklists clearly are not the answer, but they do certainly help. It's good, I think, to collect other people's tips, assess them through the lens of ourselves, and see what's going to work. Mm-hmm. So what are your top 3 productivity tips for moms? Because that's another itis. We can have that idol of productivity really, really hardcore.
Yes. My very top one is to use a timer. So say you have your zone, or say you're decluttering, whatever it is that you need to be paying attention to and getting things done. Instead of starting with a list of tasks and trying to work through in that checklist mode, set a timer and say for 10 minutes, just make that space better. And overall, if you just do that and spend 10 minutes a day cleaning a zone, maybe 10 minutes a day decluttering a particular space that is bothering you, 10 minutes a day in the kitchen, none of those jobs are going to get absolutely all the way finished or complete, but they will all be way better than you would ever think they could be in just 10 minutes. And a part of that is zeroing in the focus, which is easier to do with a timer and a short amount of time where it doesn't feel like it's dragging on forever. And a huge part of it is just it helps you get started. And starting is the hardest part. And we tend to want to overthink and figure things out first before getting started. And the timer is just a reminder, just get started. Things will be made more clear and it'll become more obvious what you should do when you're actually doing, instead of when you're just trying to figure it out.
It's a very effective tip for kids too, yes. Setting a timer. And I think it can just help our sense of, in a strange way, our sense of completion, because even though we don't complete the job, a lot of times if I want to get a job all the way to completion, if I get interrupted, I'm really angry.
Mm-hmm.
I feel really unfinished. I feel like I'm not okay with my productivity that day, even though maybe I put 45 minutes of concentrated effort into something. Just because I can't check it off, now I'm like just full of angst. And so it's great when you set your expectation for a time
Yeah.
instead of a task, hugely different. And sometimes, this works and doesn't work for different tasks, but it's a great one to use for kids. Mystie, I love to leave parents with a message of hope. So if you could encourage us in one way, and I'm almost thinking maybe paint a picture of what a household feels like when you're sort of following your philosophy of homemaking being about the people, not the stuff, and making it work for you.
I just have been so grateful for the growth that I've seen in myself, and because in myself, in my children alongside me, that our home is a place of teamwork, whether that's cooking a meal or getting the house ready for having people over. We're just kind of all on board together. And that's because I have learned to pay more attention to the kids and how we are relating than having things just the way I like them. And we can do big things as a family, whether that's having people over or homeschooling. Our house is used for a lot of things. We are in fellowship together as a family, doing those big things, and we can be okay with the fact that the house is then often in a disrupted state. There is often a mess in the kitchen because the kitchen is used a lot. The living room is often full of books everywhere because people are reading a lot. And we have times of day that we pull things together, but we notice the living and the projects and the growth happening instead of noticing the mess as a problem. The mess is a sign of life. And so it doesn't have to be frustrating. My house is often not clean. And we're all okay with that, not because we've given up like I did when I was younger. And I'm like, well, I just don't care. It's like, I actually do care that it doesn't stay that way. But when I see the mess in the kitchen, I see signs that people were here eating and enjoying one another. And the messes in the living room, I was like, oh, children were playing here. Isn't that great? Mm-hmm. And like what I see when I see the mess has changed.
That's beautiful. A lived-in home is truly a happy home, and it's an alive home. Yeah. And I love the way you describe that. The perfect ending. Thank you so much, Mystie. Say the name of your book again, and we'll make sure we link to it everywhere we share this interview.
Thank you. It's Simplified Organization, Learn to Love What Must Be Done.
So good. Parents, I hope this was inspiring for you. I think I'm going to just put on my Mystie glasses and make sure I walk around my house and choose to be grateful for the lived-in state. And also, I like that you say we know it doesn't have to stay that way because we can teach our kids the skills and have that nice flow where we're all working on it together to get ready for hospitality and company. So thank you for the inspiration and the information today, Mystie.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast. I hope your brain feels fed and your heart feels full and that you feel connected, knowing that there are other parents on this journey with you. We're just trying to raise healthy, independent adults. And the next time you think, man, there is no handbook for this job. Now there is the Healthy Parenting Handbook. Look up the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please leave a review, my friends, as that helps other parents who need this information to find us. And of course, subscribe. That's a huge help. You can also look for our shorts as a reel on Instagram at Katie Kimball Kids Cook, or subscribe to the Healthy Parenting Handbook Shorts channel on YouTube. You'll get those bite-sized portions of healthy parenting advice.